A warlord stands back and watches his loyal warriors in a mock fight. The winner will receive great gifts and status from the warlord, and perhaps join his inner circle. But even if they don't win, the brutal hand-to-hand fighting that the warlord urges his men to engage in will craft them into fighting warriors, who he can send out on foreign conquests. But this isn't some medieval horse lord ready to ride out from the steppes, or a brutal barbarian tribe preparing to raid the fringes of the Roman Empire. This is 2025, and the warlord's name is Ramzan Kadyrov. He's the head of the Chechen Republic, where he runs a military dictatorship with strict Islamic law, and he's one of Vladimir Putin's closest allies. Today, on A Day in History, we'll tell the story of how Ramzan Kadyrov rose to power in Chechnya, built a regime upon faith and fear, and is now using MMA to build one of the modern world's most terrifying military organizations. To understand Kadyrov, we have to know where he came from. His homeland of Chechnya is inhabited mostly by Muslims, who tried to assert their independence during the collapse of the Soviet Union. Kadyrov's father, Akhmat Kadyrov, was an imam and one of the militant leaders who declared holy war on Russia in 1994. 18-year-old Ramzan joined that fight. Chechnya has a long history of being independent warriors who have fiercely resisted Russian control for centuries. Ramzan Kadyrov proudly upholds that Chechen warrior tradition, even if he had distanced himself from the fact of who the Chechens have usually been fighting. Given his later loyalties, Ramzan has always been publicly vague about his actions during the war. Several thousand Russian troops were killed in the First Chechen War, but it's up for debate whether Kadyrov killed any one of them. Some sources close to Kadyrov claim that he would boast about killing his first Russian soldier when he was just a teenager, but Kadyrov himself has always denied he ever harmed a Russian. The war was brutal. Entire villages were wiped out, and the Chechen capital of Grozny was flattened with the deaths of tens of thousands of civilians. However, this brutality did not bring Russia the success it hoped for. In 1996, with the war dragging on and becoming hugely unpopular at home, Russia signed a peace treaty, withdrawing its troops and recognizing Chechen autonomy but not full independence. For men like Ramzan Kadyrov, the end of the war did not bring peace. Chechnya was now overrun with militants, and many of them had embraced Islamic extremism. Those militants quickly turned on each other, turning Chechnya into a war zone once more. Kadyrov and his father were Muslims, but they rejected the hardline jihadist stance and wanted to see order brought to their homeland. When Chechen Islamists staged terror attacks on Russia in late 1999, Moscow sent troops back into Chechnya for a second war. Under the direction of soon-to-be President Vladimir Putin, the Russians were much more effective the second time. The Kadyrovs realized that Russia would win, and decided it was better to make themselves useful to the victor than be the loser. The Kadyrovs offered to ally with the Russians. They'd throw their men and influence behind the Russian war effort, and convince other Chechens to do the same. In exchange, Russia would recognize Akhmat Kadyrov as the effective ruler of Chechnya. Putin accepted the offer, and the Kadyrovs became the most powerful family in Chechnya. Ramzan spent the next few years focusing on his family's militia, nicknamed the Kadyrovits, while his father took on more powers as president of Chechnya. By mid-2000, Russia and the Kadyrovs had taken control of most of the cities and pushed the remaining separatists into the countryside. Ramzan continued to run anti-guerrilla operations and help run security for his father, who was under constant threat of assassination. On May 9, 2004, one of those assassination attempts paid off. Islamist militants detonated a bomb during a Second World War Victory Day parade in Grozny, which killed Akhmat Kadyrov and dozens of other people. Ramzan was not present and suddenly found himself inheriting his father's militia and much of his reputation. Officially, though, Ramzan had no claim on his father's title as president of Chechnya. Instead, Russia backed the more experienced and loyal Alu Alkhanov in the elections held a few months after Akhmat Kadyrov's death, believing he would do a better job of bringing order to Chechnya. However, Ramzan had already proved himself in the eyes of Chechens. He was a successful militia fighter with a lot of men under his command, and he carried the torch for his murdered father. Alkhanov recognized that alienating him was a recipe for danger, so he appointed Ramzan as deputy prime minister with a lot of power. Ramzan wielded that power well. He had his militia continue to hunt down separatists and Islamists, keeping up his reputation as a successful war leader. At the same time, he began pitching the rebuilding of Chechnya to be more grand than ever before. The star of his efforts was the massive Akhmat Kadyrov Mosque in Grozny, which Ramzan dubbed the heart of Chechnya. The richly decorated mosque was modeled on Istanbul's Hagia Sophia and was built as a statement that Chechnya was no longer the war-torn backwater it had been in the past. Kadyrov's influence was also helped by his immense praise of Putin, and he increasingly presented himself as an admirer and protege of the Russian leader. Within a few years, Kadyrov had proven himself to be the most popular and effective in Chechnya, and Moscow knew it too. In February 2007, Putin dismissed President Alkhanov and appointed Kadyrov in his place, a position he has held ever since. Kadyrov has ruled Chechnya with an iron fist for 18 years. In that time, he has built himself an identity as a tough Muslim leader who is a big admirer of Vladimir Putin. With his position dependent upon Moscow's approval, Kadyrov has presented himself as a friend and ally of Putin. From posting photos on social media wearing Putin t-shirts, to declaring Putin a bigger inspiration to him than his own father, the Chechen leader has heaped flattery on his superior at every chance. How Putin truly feels about the man is difficult to say, but he clearly recognizes Kadyrov as useful. Putin supported Kadyrov's efforts to weed out remaining separatists in the early years of his rule. By 2009, Putin ordered most Russian troops to withdraw from the region entirely, declaring that Kadyrov's good work meant that they were no longer needed. Certainly, Chechnya is in a much better state now than it was in the 90s. The separatists are all but eliminated, and Islamist militants have been driven underground. Still, they pose a threat. In 2009, Kadyrov survived an Islamic assassination attempt after police shot a militant trying to run a car bomb at Kadyrov while he was giving a speech. Although he rejects militant extremism, Kadyrov's regime still has a strong Islamic character, and he has implemented harsh Sharia laws to enforce Islamic discipline upon society. Access to alcohol is limited, gambling is banned, and social media is heavily controlled to prevent anti-Islamic beliefs spreading among the population. Women are barred from many fields of work and must wear headscarves if they're in public. Unofficially, Kadyrov endorses honor killings of women accused of adultery by their families, a practice that often results in victims being murdered by their own family to restore honor after the attack. While Kadyrov had presided over a general recovery of Chechnya from the chaos of the 90s and early 2000s, Chechnya is hardly prosperous. It remains one of the poorest regions of Russia, and its economy is dependent upon federal subsidies to survive. It is also plagued with corruption. Kadyrov and his inner circle have been accused of stealing government funds to purchase homes, cars, and other luxuries, and even using charities as fronts to steal money. Despite this, the Russian government refused to investigate too deeply or reduce the funding. Keeping Chechnya stable is worth the cost to Moscow. Thanks to the restoration of general order and his enthusiastic support of Islam, Kadyrov enjoys significant support from the Chechen people and political class. We cannot take election results as an accurate sign of how people feel about Kadyrov. His official results of 98% support for re-election in 2016 are extremely questionable. Most observers agree that Kadyrov does enjoy a genuine support from a sizable majority of Chechens. As for those who don't support him, Kadyrov has solutions for that too. Kadyrov's early adulthood in his father's militia hardened him and normalized violence in his life. He put those experiences into practice as ruler of Chechnya. Kadyrov's regime has been accused of a long list of human rights abuses. These include kidnapping, torture, murder, and assassination. Human rights activists believe hundreds of individuals have been eliminated on Kadyrov's direct orders, on top of the thousands of people imprisoned and tortured by his regime, for seemingly innocuous actions like criticizing Kadyrov on social media. His police forces wield the power of the state to persecute alleged enemies, while his family's militia, the Kadyrovtse, functions like his private army, despite now officially being part of the Russian National Guard. The Kadyrovtse have been connected to numerous murders and abductions around the world that were probably ordered by the Chechen president. One example is Umar Israilov. Israilov served as one of Kadyrov's personal bodyguards in the Kadyrovtse in the early 2000s, and he saw firsthand what Kadyrov was capable of. He alleged that Kadyrov had personally ordered and taken part in torture, rape, and murder, while Israilov was working with him. Israilov fled Chechnya in 2006 and reported Kadyrov to international authorities. He went into hiding, but it could not keep him safe for long. In January 2009, Israilov was shot dead by 4 men while walking through the streets of Vienna. Austrian authorities caught 3 of the attackers and confirmed they were all Chechens, with close connections with Kadyrov. Israilov is one of many critics and opponents that Kadyrov is thought to have eliminated. These murders are still going on. As recently as January 30th, 2020, Imran Aliyev, a blogger known for criticizing Kadyrov and Putin, was found dead from stab wounds in a hotel room in France. French authorities identified a suspect, whose name has never been released, as a professional hitman hired by Kadyrov, who then fled France before authorities could catch him. Kadyrov's list of enemies is long and includes entire groups of people. His hardline Islamic beliefs include a total opposition to homosexuality, which is illegal and heavily punished in Chechnya. Kadyrov has been implicated in homophobic purges, which include kidnappings, imprisonment, and even lynchings of people accused of being gay. The most well-known case was that of Maxim Lapunov, a gay man who was arrested and tortured in 2017 purely for his sexuality. He is one of the few gay Chechens who survived and escaped Kadyrov's regime to report the abuse, but many more weren't so lucky. Kadyrov himself denies that his regime persecutes gay people. However, he doesn't say that because he doesn't hate them. In fact, he's on record describing gay people as demonic and barely even human. Instead,
Они шайтаны, они поддажные, они нелюди.
Kadyrov claims that there isn't any persecution because Chechnya does not have gay people. Homosexuality, his regime says, is a Western corruption and simply doesn't exist in his country. Speaking in 2017, Kadyrov said, "We don't have these kinds of people here. We don't have any gays. If there are any, take them far from us so we don't have them at home." He has also stated that he approves and expects families to perform honor killings on anyone discovered to be gay. But if there's one thing Kadyrov's regime has become famous for around the world, it's his obsession with mixed martial arts. Kadyrov is a huge MMA fan and introduced the sport to Chechnya in 2015. He founded an official MMA club, Fight Club Akhmat, to oversee Chechnya's MMA training and gave a regime stamp of approval to the sport. Given Kadyrov's own militia background and Chechnya's long warrior culture history, a combat sport like MMA was a predictable hit with the Chechen people. Tens of thousands of Chechen boys participate in MMA-inspired training, and many go on to become professional fighters, such as the current UFC middleweight champion Khamzat Chimaev. Millions of rubles have been poured into Chechen MMA in the decades since its introduction. Kadyrov funds promising fighters and treats the best of them like celebrities. He's even tried to force his own family into it. In 2016, he hosted an MMA tournament, which included his own children, all of them younger than 12, and no protective gear since he wanted it to be authentic. MMA officials and several ministers in the Russian government expressed concern or condemned the tournament as illegal, but Kadyrov didn't care. One of his sons, Zelimkhan Ali Kadyrov, made his professional MMA debut in 2022. Kadyrov's use of MMA isn't just that of an enthusiastic fan. By pouring money into training fighters and promoting champions, Kadyrov hopes to attract more money back into Chechnya through publicity and business deals, which makes a lot of sense when you realize that the UFC, the premier MMA organization in the world, is valued at about $11 billion, while Chechnya's annual GDP is estimated at less than $4 billion. But it goes even deeper than that. Kadyrov believes that MMA promotes the warrior culture he wants for his Chechen nation. Every fighter in the ring is a fighter for the battlefield. MMA is a safe way to harness and promote the Chechen warrior spirit without risking pointing it at Chechnya's traditional enemies in Russia. Nowhere has this been more obvious than in Ukraine. Kadyrov declared his full support for the invasion in 2022. And Chechen troops were among those deployed to occupy the country. The Chechens have earned a reputation for their brutality and fearlessness in battle, two traits that Kadyrov himself has always valued, and two traits that many believe his MMA support is designed to encourage. Hundreds, if not thousands, of Chechen men who trained with Fight Club Akhmat went on to serve in Ukraine. The head of Fight Club Akhmat, Abuzayed Vismuradov, is also Kadyrov's right-hand man and was reportedly involved in selecting MMA recruits to be sent to Ukraine. Chechen fighters have taken part in many of the most brutal battles of the Ukraine war, including the Battle of Mariupol and the capture of the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. They have been credibly accused of war crimes, including massacres and of Ukrainian civilians, and executions of captured soldiers and mercenaries. The Chechen reputation for brutality is so infamous that the Russian military actively recruits Chechen soldiers to run prisons for Russian deserters and defectors, knowing that ending up in Chechen hands is enough of a punishment to scare potential deserters into staying. With some of Russia's best available soldiers at his command and a potentially dangerous region securely under his thumb, It's no wonder that Kadyrov is seen as one of Putin's most valuable allies. However, the alliance between the governments in Moscow and Grozny is still new and is far from guaranteed. Kadyrov is aware that his power rests entirely on Putin's approval, and he could be officially dismissed at any moment, just like his predecessor. He jealously guards his power from any Russian intrusion, as he did in 2015, when he called for Chechen troops to shoot at any non-Chechen police from elsewhere in Russia who tried to interfere in his territory. At the same time, Putin knows that Kadyrov commands intense loyalty and a lot of armed men in Chechnya, and is reluctant to upset him. Kadyrov's actions, from promoting Sharia law to running child MMA fights, have caused awkwardness for Moscow, who officially condemns such behavior but doesn't lift a finger to stop him. Both men understand that a wrong move could trigger a third Chechen war, which could devastate Chechnya and humiliate Russia once again, while claiming thousands of lives on both sides. Their alliance holds in the meantime, but there is no telling how their relationship may change or whether Putin's successor will inspire the same loyalty in this brutal and proud warlord. In the long run, Kadyrov clearly intends to keep his family in power. His son, Adam Kadyrov, is believed to be his intended successor. Ramzan has presented him as a devout Muslim who had memorized the entire Quran, but also a fierce warrior and MMA fighter who is every bit as brutal as he is. When video leaked of the then 16-year-old Adam beating a prisoner in 2023, Ramzan praised him, promoted him, and gave him several medals for his supposed bravery. For now though, the Chechen warlord, with his brutal regime of strict Muslim law and MMA-trained soldiers, is one of the strangest and most controversial regimes on Earth. As he continues to wage war in Ukraine and suppress opponents at home, Ramzan Kadyrov has earned his reputation as the modern world's most powerful warlord.